Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. So my name is Paulo, and today we're going to be talking about working abroad. Specifically speaking, going to be talking about UK and what are the top 5 reasons that you should actually consider and move to the UK straight away. So together with me today, I have Kate. How are you, Kate?
I'm good. How are you, Paulo?
I'm doing great, thanks. Okay, so today we're going to be talking then about working abroad and then specifically speaking, as I mentioned, UK. So Kate have a serious amount of experience working across different countries, and she's of course is coming from the UK. So she's going to be sharing with you guys a bit of the main reasons why you should actually consider and move to the UK straight away. Okay, so stick around for reason number 1. Hi guys, so let's go then to reason number 1. So what is this about? So essentially today we're going to be talking about the job market, the cost of living, and of course the Brexit. Okay, so before we actually go even deeper, let's say in terms of the job market and the cost of living, let's tackle the Brexit first. Okay, so Kate, what is it that you'd like to share then with regards to the Brexit? Do you reckon that people were impacted, and how come?
So for sure, people have been impacted, especially if they live and are from the European Union. Obviously, Brexit, we will have our opinion, but the fact is it's made living and working in the UK as a non-British national extremely difficult. Now, if you were already in the UK before Brexit and you've been there for 5 or more years, you were fine. You could just do a bit of paperwork on the gov.uk website and you'd get your permanent residency, no problem. If you've been in the UK and you hadn't quite made that 5-year mark, you'd have to get a temporary residency. And then as soon as you completed the 5-year cycle, you get your permanent residency and access to all the services and pretty much as a national, except voting rights, of course. And then if you've started thinking about from post-Brexit times, I'd love to go to the UK, I'd love to improve my English, I'd love to study or work there, then there is a bit of a difference now in that before you could just trundle over the English Channel as a European and set up shop and look for a job. Now you've got to have a job waiting for you. All the Europeans have pretty much the same status as Australians and Americans insofar as you're part of a third tier in terms of your rights and abilities to live and work in the UK. So yeah, if you want to work in the UK now as a European or as an American, an Australian, etc., you need to have a job set up first with a British employer. That British employer also needs to have paid for a license to hire someone outside of the UK for a particular job. And as part of that needs to prove that a UK national wouldn't be able to do the job, or there's a real need for talent overseas outside of the country. So it's totally possible to get that job and live and work in the UK, but there's just that added layer of complexity. You've got to have it in the bag before you move over there.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think so. So, for instance, I do recall when I was there, working there, and I was prior to the Brexit. Okay, so things were much more easier. Let's put it like that, from a European perspective. But I think that one of the things that definitely changed is the fact that you need to take care of all of that upfront. I would say that the market in itself, and let's say transitioning to the job market, I would say that the market in itself most likely did not suffer a lot internally speaking. And I think that is still booming quite a lot in terms of meaning tech companies, finance, although it had some kind of let's say difficulties in that front with regards to the move of some of the institutions, let's say, to the European Union, let's say, like for instance to Paris, but also to the Netherlands with regards to the euro. So I think that there was some bits and bobs, let's say, that were impacted in that front. But overall, I think that the market's still quite powerful. And I would say that, and I'm talking about this like almost like in first hand, because I still do receive proposals for the UK. Okay, so
yeah, you're 100% spot on. Just to do a quick comparison between the UK and Spain, where I'm currently based. Employment in the UK currently is 4.8, unemployment, sorry, is 4.8%. In Spain, it's 13%. And, over in Spain, we're still saying that things are going much better than they were, let's say, in the wake of the crisis in 2008, 2009. Obviously, the pandemic has seriously impacted the infrastructure of both countries in terms of employment and job opportunities. But yeah, I think Brexit impacted the banking sector most visibly, because we did see branches of banks moving to Frankfurt, moving to maybe Amsterdam and Paris. But I think you're right. I think generally the economy and the job market is much more fluid in the UK than it is in certainly in Southern Europe. And there are still plenty of opportunities for skilled workers. Now, doing a little bit of research and looking at the jobs that are particularly in short supply, where, let's say, a European or a non-UK national could actually get a job more easily. You're looking at electrical and electronics engineers, civil engineers, any kind of engineer essentially is not a profession that let's say many young people in the UK aspire to have. And as a result, it creates a vacuum that someone from France, Germany, Italy, if they were specialized in that area, they could certainly get themselves that permanent contract, which allows them to then move to the UK and live and work there.
Yeah, brilliant. I would say that added to that is also, I would say that we still have an area, let's say, that is actually booming in the UK, that's around technology. So I still think that is still with a lot of, let's say, of demand there. And that's something that actually is not just in the UK, it's across the globe, let's say, but the UK is definitely one of the spots that I'd say if you are working on technology, it's really a place for you to check out, because you have loads of HQs actually sitting there. Major companies such as, for instance, Salesforce, LinkedIn, etc. Loads of big companies that have their HQs there. So, and also I remember some time ago, also Lego actually set up the global digital hub there in London, actually. So there are still those specific type of jobs connected to what you mentioned, like you need to have a certain level of expertise that most likely is still going to get the job there for sure.
Exactly. And those types of jobs really require a specialist skill set. So you're looking at high salary. You're not looking at the sort of national average salary in the UK is quite low. It's about £31,000 a year, a bit over that. But obviously, if you're walking into an engineering career, you're looking at substantially more than that. And another happy fact about the UK is that there's 20% income tax on salaries of what we call a basic rate, so up to £50,000 per year. You're paying as low as 20% tax. Now, I know in some countries, like my in-laws are from Kuwait, where there's 0% tax, so for them 20% seems like a lot. But again, to do a quite fast comparison to Spain, where for the same sort of salary around the 50k mark, you're paying up to 37% in income tax. You can see that for the UK, not only are you getting more in your pocket when you receive your pay slip or at the end of the financial month or financial quarter, I should say, but you're also getting great free services as well, such as, and we'll talk about this a bit later, the NHS, sanitation. There are lots of sort of day-to-day practicalities that are taken care of by that 20% income tax, which is relatively low when compared to other countries.
I would say that actually gives us the perfect bridge, the perfect connection, let's say, to the third point of this topic, that is around the cost of living. And I would say that connected to what you said, I tend to agree, okay, but there is a catch there. I think that you need to be very smart on the way that you actually invest your money, okay? The reason for that is I'm going to give you some pointers, okay? And this will serve for everyone. So when I was there, so I was living in Kent. Moving from Kent to London was like 45 minutes train, okay? And I was paying roughly £420 a month, okay? So you need to be smart on the way you actually manage your money, okay? So those are some of the things that I would underline, because you need to be mindful of the cost of living as well. Do you want to add anything to that? Go for it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes when I talk to friends back home, that a beer in Barcelona costs a couple of euros, they just their jaws drop, because they're sometimes spending up to £9 for a pint, which I know is slightly larger than the quantity you'd get in a Spanish bar, but still, I've also heard of places, I've never been to them, where beer could be, maybe premium beer could be up to £20 for a pint, and people are willing to pay those prices because, well, first of all, I mean, there is a sort of price to quality ratio that I've never quite understood in the UK, and so far as sometimes you'll pay quite a lot and the standard won't be that high. Food, for example, you could go to a restaurant and end up with quite a large bill, but you won't say that was the best food that you ever ate in your life.
The best steak in your life.
Exactly. And you could go to a sort of a humble little bar on the corner of a Barcelona street and have, sort of fresh fried sardines with, sweet onions and, freshly picked tomatoes. It costs you a grand total of €5, and you just walk away feeling like you had an exceptional culinary experience, even though it was a very simple. So I think in the UK, I wouldn't subscribe to the belief that all the food is bad. I think that there's actually quite a lot of movements, like the slow food movement, that drastically improve the quality of food in restaurants, and other influences like gastropubs became kind of a big deal over the last sort of 10 to 15 years. And the idea behind it all is raise the standards, farm to table ingredients, really take care and pride in what you're doing, and also use the best of British, right? The best meats, the best vegetables, somehow, grown locally. And so I think there's a market improvement to shift this reputation the UK has of having this awful cuisine. But I think that there is still a gap between what you'll pay for a meal in the UK and the experience of satisfaction that comes with it. I don't know if you agree, but maybe I'm biased because I grew up on fish and chips.
No, I do agree. I think with regards to the cost of living, I think that there are some flags, let's say, that you need to pay attention to. So one, as I mentioned, is transportation. The other one is around kindergarten, can be very expensive as well. And I would say, meaning a flat, okay, a flat, a house, whatever you were about to rent. I would say those are the three main things that you need to pay attention to. But if you find a way of circumnavigate, let's say, those 3 points, and I would say that your money will run much longer. Let's put it like that. Okay.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So with this, let's close this topic and let's go to reason number 2. Okay. So stick around. Let's go then for reason number 2. Okay, what is this about? So essentially, we are talking about the language. Okay, English is without a question one of the big, I'd say, assets of the UK. It's like the language that everyone almost across the world will actually work with. Hi there. So with that said, I'm going to pass then to Kate. Go for it, Kate.
I'm not going to say what my son just whispered to me. Right. Okay.
Language, English. Let's go.
Language is super important in the UK, but I once heard a shocking statistic. It comes from no official source, but there's some truth to it, that 1 in 7 people in London speak English.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, the thing I love about the UK is that it's so multicultural, it's so diverse. Yeah. It's got such a rich history. But what's, I think, been a struggle over the last sort of 50 years, and I speak from, let's say, the experience of my mother, who was an immigrant from Guyana. Well, actually, she wasn't an immigrant. She was she grew up in a colony, a British colony in South America, and she came over at the age of 12 on a ship across the Atlantic to Southampton. And she really made an effort to not just learn the language, but really assimilate into the culture, perfect the local accent, throw herself, heart and soul into British culture, and really, wanted to raise her kids in the same way, right? But I know a lot of people who come to the UK and, they do come for, the promise of, well, actually, I don't know, the promise of rainy weather and cold winters, and I don't know, but people do come to the UK, not just to work and live, but just, you know, to also build some kind of family life. And they don't, there is a tension between, you know, how can I stay authentic to my roots, but how can I also fit in here? And what happens a lot is that people join communities of cousins, aunties, uncles, grandparents. They come and they build communities which are within themselves super interesting and super complex, but the whole piece about learning English to a really, you know, sort of fluent standard sometimes gets a little bit thrown by the wayside. I don't think it's in every case, but you do find communities in London where people don't really need English to get by because they've got their community with their native language as the lingua franca. And it's kind of the sort of blessing of London in a way, that it could be so multicultural and just still run, you know,
that's
clockwork,
correct.
actually.
But I would say, adding to that, I would say that there is still, let's say, even I would say underlining that there is a very strong role, let's say, for the English language in terms of, as you mentioned, it's like the lingua franca, no, in terms of trade, in terms of business, etc. So I would say that that's a very strong point, because if you go to the UK and if you are actually fluent in English, it's easier for you to actually to go up the rank, let's say, within the company that you are going to work. And then, of course, English is the most widespread language across the globe. So it's easy for you, between brackets, actually to go up the ranks and actually to be able to work at the global level. And by using English, then you can actually just reach out to different people across the globe and actually do business. So I think that's a very positive side as well. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that of all the languages that you know are super important for business and super important for trade, I think English is probably one of the easiest to learn. Now, no, I'm going to get somebody saying, "Don't, that's not true," but you know, I see it time.
I think it is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just a small case study, very small case study, but maybe it could be used more widely. My son, who he has an English-speaking mum, an Arabic-speaking father. He struggles with Arabic, but English just, you know, rattles off his tongue. And it's not necessarily because he spends more time with me. Thanks to the pandemic, both parents are at home working, interacting, sharing the pickups from school. I wouldn't say that, you know, mum's 100% present and dad's, you know, off commuting and working somewhere. No, that he's exposed to both of us. But English just sort of rattles off his tongue, and Arabic it's a roadblock. Like, you have to somehow almost sit down and explain like how it works, because you know the alphabet's more complicated, the grammar's got more exceptions to it. You know, again, I can't say that would be the example that applies to everybody, but I certainly see, even among friends, they find it much easier to sort of lean on English than another language other than their own.
Yeah, but I think that's definitely one of the assets, let's say, of the English language, is the fact that you can actually learn it fast, and therefore you can actually leverage that to actually to go fast in terms of your career as well. So I think that, in a nutshell, actually closed, let's say, reason number 2. So let's go then for reason number 3. Let's go then for reason number 3. So this is all about living actually in the UK. What is it that you need to take into consideration in terms of buying a house? What's the healthcare like? And those are some of the things that you really should think of. But along the way, also, most likely you want to study there. So looking at higher education, or even if you are coming from abroad and you're actually looking to go to study actually at higher education institute in the UK, what is it that you should actually consider? So those are some of the topics that I'd like just to raise to UK. What about buying a house in the UK? Is it cheap or not actually?
I had to do like a number three. Oh my gosh, buying a house in the UK is so much easier than buying a house where I currently live in Spain. it's not only less expensive to start the process of buying a house, but second of all, there are even governmental schemes to incentivize non-Brits. Okay, you don't even have to be British to apply, but there's like a, you know, what they call it, like there's like basically a purchase scheme where you don't have to pay back anything for 6 years. And yeah, I mean, it's the stuff of dreams, but it really is to help a generation that has, you know, not necessarily had the capital to be able to invest in ever inflating property prices, especially in places like London. So the government has been really supportive with helping, especially younger people, and younger people who may have even moved from another country to the UK, actually buy real estate. So I think that's really positive about the UK. The actual prices, though, of the houses
are not so positive, I would say.
Considerably higher than many other places. No, I think what's happening because of the pandemic particularly is that people are realizing that if they can work a bit more flexibly and they don't have to commute into London every day, they can think about moving to places that are slightly less expensive but no less beautiful in the UK. So there are some northern cities like Newcastle, for example, absolutely replete with culture and, you know, things going on.
Cambridge, for instance, is not that far off from London as well, that you can actually commute, for instance, as an example.
Completely. There's so much going on in terms of the labor market there as well, but the house prices are a fraction. I mean, like really a fraction of what you'd pay in London, and the rent's the same. So I think buying a house, that's probably my take. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add about that subject.
On my perspective, it's like if I would be planning to stay in the UK for longer, I would go for buying a house and not actually renting it. The reason for that is by renting, the houses, to start from, are very expensive, even for renting purposes. So essentially, you are just putting your money away, let's say. And due to the schemes that you actually have in the UK, you can actually buy a house. So meaning for me, it makes much more sense for you to actually to buy a house and not just rent. Okay, like for instance, if you go to Spain, as the example, even specifically in Barcelona, it's really, really difficult to buy a house. So I would go for that, and that will be my take with regards to that specific point. Looking to anything to add on this one, or because I think it's more or less okay, no, in terms of buying houses, let's say.
I think we can close this one. We can close this one and move on to.
I think that the next point, let's say, within this, that I think it's important for you to be aware of, is around the health system. Okay, so the so-called NHS. Okay, so myself, I was already, let's say, fortunately or unfortunately, I needed to go to the hospital. Okay, not just myself, but also my child. And I could attest, let's say, to the quality of the services there. So it's actually quite good. And even more, I would say, taking into consideration that the UK is essentially a more capitalistic kind of country. And you take that into perspective, but at the same time, you have the health part that is actually for free, which is a kind of a very interesting mix. Okay, so what's your take on that, Kate?
So the NHS, or the National Health Service, was created just after the Second World War, and it was at a time where the government wanted to look after everybody, right? They'd been through this excruciating, combat, both fought at home and on the Western Front, and I think there was this real feeling of responsibility to, rebuild the country, and within that, the free healthcare system, supporting Britons from cradle to grave, was created, which is a fantastic concept. Now, we all take it for granted these days, healthcare free. And as soon as any of us go to places like the United States and we cut our knee falling over on the street, and then we're faced with a $3,000 bill for a consultation and a plaster, we realize the value of having a free healthcare service. So you're right, Britain is very capitalist, progressive in many respects, really promotes entrepreneurship,
Definitely so.
You and I probably, we both know how easy it is to set up a company in the UK compared to, say, a country like Portugal or a country like Spain. It's really encouraged to be your own boss. But it's true that there is this lingering legacy of the government looking after the people, giving them free resources to look after them in their hour of need. So I think it's a wonderful combination. And yeah, I wish more countries were like that. I definitely think that's a plus of being in the UK.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So the other topic that I would say that I feel that is a very good reason why you should actually consider and move to the UK is the level of education, higher education, let's say. Like, for instance, if you look to the stats, okay, the first, like, I think it's like on the first 20 or 15 actually universities, you have 7 that are actually from the UK: Imperial College, Oxford, Cambridge, etc. So I think that, in my view, it's one of the things that you actually should consider if you want to go for, let's say, having a career and working abroad, having the UK as a destination. Actually like to consider, okay, I'm here, but actually I can go even further and get to know more and actually learn more, because I actually have at my feet, between brackets, some of the best universities globally speaking. So what's your take on that, Kate?
Well, listen, I'm kind of a black and white thinker in many respects, which is not a good thing. But I tend to think that people who get educated in the UK fall into one of 2 categories. Number one, they see the value of the personal branding, right? The British education, Oxford, Cambridge. Where can I not go after I go to Oxford or Cambridge? And then there's the other side of the coin, which is people who are somewhat romantic and really enjoy the rituals and the romance and vigors of an English education. So, for example, the things that you see in Harry Potter are real, like having a house system where, as a pupil or a student, you're assigned to a particular group of people or a house, and you do various activities throughout your school year, and any points that you get go to the house, and then the house at the end of the school year that wins gets some kind of prize. And it's just all this sort of stuff that, on one hand, it's maybe a bit silly, a bit like flim flam, but on the other hand, it's fun, and it sort of promotes a kind of spirit of solidarity, which I think is something that has made Britain a very a true melting pot, and one where, although there are certainly divisions and social tensions, there is a lot of people transgressing barriers and sort of accepting one another, even if you've come from somewhere else. And I think that is something that I will mention as a quick segue, Paolo, that the British people on the whole are extremely friendly and somewhat distant, that's for sure, that they want to get to know you and take their time to get to know you before they consider you a close pal, but generally very open to helping and wanting to be supportive, even of strangers who they've never met. So I've diverted a bit from the higher education path, but going back to that, I think that if you do want to remember your school years fondly and remember all the traditions that you had, it wasn't just about taking notes and passing exams. It was about discovering incredible rituals, architecture, the dinners, the Latin prayers. It's incredible, and it's like something out of the Middle Ages. And I think for me, I'm a bit of a softie for all of that, so I really enjoyed it. But yeah, I mean, if you want just a straight up education to sort of get in, get out, transactional experience, I wouldn't say it was perhaps what you're looking for, but I think that if you do want that memorable idiosyncratic experience, then Britain is the place.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's the perfect sentence, let's say, to close on this last on this topic before we actually move to the next one. So stick around. I would say the most interesting reason of all, let's put it like that, pubs and food. Okay, so what is it that you want to share with us with regards to that, Kate?
Well, first of all, as I said earlier, the food in the UK is better than you think. So you're going to have lots of pleasant surprises when you visit.
I completely agree.
Okay. And I think that the more often you can go to a pop-up restaurant or one of these ephemeral restaurants, the better, because everything's on top form, quality wise, ingredients wise. What I will mention though is that the UK have really mastered the art of snacking, which is great when you're doing it, but the effects can be somewhat uncomfortable to sit with in the long term. I'll explain. So
Okay,
some of the things
what is that about? Tell me.
It can be explained away by a beautiful phrase coined by Australians and New Zealanders. I don't know who precisely, but they coined a phrase called the Heathrow injection. Okay. And the Heathrow injection basically means that when you go to the UK for the first time from your beautiful home country, which is probably sunnier than the UK, with a more, let's say a more vegetable based diet, a bit less heavy on the carbs, you're in perfect shape. And by the time you leave after your year in the UK, those carbs that you've been eating all year, they're starting to settle in. They're starting to make their home in various places that you don't want them to be. And you may find yourself somewhat heavier than you were when you first arrived at Heathrow Airport. So the Heathrow injection is that injection of carby love that the UK's diet gives you, okay? And I think that a lot of the, I certainly put on a lot of weight when I was in the UK, and I lost quite a lot of it when I moved to Spain, but some of the things that you really end up, I think, falling in love with are the supermarket snacks. Like when you're in the queue for the checkout and you see all those tempting things just as you're about to walk away. So things like Monster Munch, Walker's Crisps, Flapjacks, hula hoops, Jaffa cakes, I could go on. But all of these things just don't seem to appear anywhere else apart from UK supermarkets and convenience stores. And they are deadly. They are so good, but they come with a health warning. I don't know, when you're in the UK, did you find yourself compulsively snacking and breaking your good Portuguese diet?
No.
Oh,
at all. So what I would do normally when I was in the UK, actually, I would go to those pubs. The rural, the better. So like, for instance, to very, like a kind of, I don't know, small villages and things like that, where you actually have shepherd pie and things like that, really more heavier, but I would say most likely more healthy as well, up to a certain point, or more natural, I would put it like that. So I would go much more towards that. Okay, so that will be much more my thing. And then pubs, of course, they are all over the UK. And even Bojo was a bit like under pressure to give it a shorter time for the corona, so that people could actually go back to the pubs. That's how strong the pub culture is in the UK. So it's a must go for sure for me.
Another curiosity about pubs in the UK is that Thursday night tends to be Friday night for some reason. So I don't know if you noticed that, particularly in London, Thursday night, every pub around is just heaving with people, maybe a bit less so because of recent events, but Friday is just a ghost town, and Thursday is the night that it's all happening. So a little tip for you: don't imagine that your Friday night is going to be in the pub, because you're probably on a train somewhere for a weekend excursion, right? But Thursday nights when it's cracking.
I'd say that if you go to the UK, pubs are part of the culture, definitely so, and the food there is actually, for me, it's much better, personally speaking, than the snacky ones. But that's my.
You've got a good metabolism, Paolo. You've got a good metabolism, I think. But don't worry, for any of us who don't have the metabolism of Paolo, then you can just take up CrossFit and you'll be fine.
Okay, genius. So with this one, we close this specific topic, and let's go for the next reason. So stick around. So, hi, and let's go for then the last reason. What is this about? So, essentially around history and places that you like to visit. Okay, so what's your take on this one, Kate?
Right, I've got it all planned out for you. New Year's
Go for
Eve,
it.
New Year's Eve, you're going to go to Edinburgh and you're going to party the night away in Edinburgh Town Centre for the famous Hogmanay New Year's Eve party. It's legendary, world famous. It's also usually -5 degrees out on the streets. You'll be
Which is
skidding
good.
on ice. It's invigorating. Everyone hugs each other to keep warm. Strangers just throw their arms around you. They're dancing in circles, holding. It's amazing. So that's for New Year's Eve. Fast forwarding a little bit to spring, summer, Oxford. I'm obviously biased because it's one of the places that I grew up in. But Oxford have the most amazing local rowing competition called Eights Week. So all the university colleges, because Oxford University is a series of colleges, each college has a rowing team. And they all get out onto the River
The same
Isis.
with Cambridge, no?
In the same with Cambridge.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they first of all, they have their city rowing competition. So, you know, it's pretty local. And then, of course, there's the famous London based Oxford Cambridge varsity rowing you know, competition, and that's fantastic. So that's definitely something that you should do. Visit Oxford, but during those sort of May days where everything's sort of blooming and you can have a pint on the banks of the river and watch, you know, a bunch of students row their hearts out.
In connection to what you were just mentioning around Oxford, Oxford is actually one of my favorite cities, I have to say, and it's like it's so lovely. And then you just shared a while ago around Harry Potter and everything around the university and all, like, let's say, the magic that you can actually find in Oxford. I can attest to that because I actually, while visiting Oxford, it's like it's amazing. It's quite medieval, let's put it like that. But then there's a specific spot. I was trying to remember the name, that you go inside an amazing garden, and then there you're gonna find actually the one of the most famous rooms of the Harry Potter movie. Okay, that is actually there. It's in one of the buildings there within the university. I was looking to remember the name.
I think you're talking about the green area. I think you're talking about Christchurch Meadow, and the building is either it's either the Great Hall in Christchurch College, or it's maybe the Bodleian Library, which is another place where
it's the Great Hall. Yeah, it's the Great Hall for sure. Yeah, definitely. Nice. So it's like amazing. So Oxford, 300%, definitely so.
And you know what, if you're in Oxford, you can always visit Blenheim Palace, which is about 10 miles outside of the centre of Oxford. It's the most gorgeous stately home. It belonged to Winston Churchill's family. Winston Churchill grew up there. They have the most spectacular gardens, and in fact at Christmas time they decorate the house so people can go and visit, take their children. There are like little amusement park rides that you can take, and you can take a tour around the garden if you're hardy enough when it's 0 degrees and dark. But it's also a lovely place to stop off. A few other tips and tricks. I love the Lake District. It's in the north of England, very close to the border with Scotland. Oh, if you want to really feel that you're in, you know, sort of ye olde England, and you want, you know, sort of something completely different from the hubbub of London, the Lake District is for you. I mean, it is those rural pubs that you were talking about earlier that you enjoy. 100%. I mean, that's it. Exactly. And there's some really lovely cultural sites around there as well. It's where the famous Kendal mint cake comes from, and William Wordsworth, the poet, has a beautiful house there with some tremendous gardens. It's very rural, it's very quiet, but I mean, it's the perfect getaway if you're looking just to sort of, you know, absorb the atmosphere and not be, you know, sort of overstimulated by traffic and, you know, craziness and shops. You just want a complete break from all that. It's the place to go.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Even it's like, for instance, if you are in London during the week, of course, you have things as the Tate Museum, etc., that you can actually go and visit. They are tremendous, but you're always going to be like in this kind of a bubbly kind of environment with loads of people from everywhere. So I would say definitely go up up north, and I think it's Lake District is like really amazing. So yeah, I could not agree more. So I think it's like we are completely aligned there. So what else?
Well, I was going to say, where are your favorite places to visit when you were in the UK?
Meaning, I would really like down south, like the everything around Dover from one end to the other, where you could actually see all that, the walls, the white walls around the cliff edge, all of that extremely green. Also, I would say Wales. I think it was really one of the things that I really loved the most. Scotland for sure. And there are, specific points around the UK where I would say that it's really, for me specifically, I think it's tremendous. Even more when you can, without, I would say, without a lot of hassle, let's say, actually be able to go into a magic place as Oxford, and then go to London, and then you can go to
together.
Yeah, exactly. It's brilliant, and you can get actually access of different cultures, because at the end we cannot forget that the UK is actually a combination of different nations, between brackets, it's, or without brackets even. So yeah, definitely so. I'll do that over and over again.
One place I might mention as a quick little bonus is the Isle of Man. It's a little island between, well, it's in the Irish Sea between England and Ireland, both in the northern and the Republic of. And it's a place where my father's family are from. And even though it's quite small and pretty windy and quite savage in terms of its landscape, it's very rugged. They have these fantastic traditions of folklore, storytelling. It's very alive in both the school education and also in the cultural events that happen in the various different, like castles or places of interest. There's lots about fairies and trolls, and it's very much let's say the more what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of the secular and folky origins of English history.
Exactly. It's a bit like the romantic, as you spoke of before. It's like it's like when you think a bit like Game of Thrones, to put it like that. It's a bit like that. You feel that kind of spiritual magic almost. It's like it's in depth of history, because it's like a country with loads of history, bags of history, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And it almost, for me, precedes the sort of the church and state story of them somehow being so close together for so many centuries and then splitting apart. And I mean, it's for me totally distinct from any kind of Christian. Obviously the main religion in the UK is Protestantism, but yeah, the sort of the folklore it's like a kind of culture that coexists, I think, with the Christianity and the sort of the religion that's baked into the culture. And I think that it's something that a lot of famous authors have referred to, right, in their poetry and their literature. So it sort of lives on today very much. I mean, you around Oxford, there were always sort of witchy gatherings of people who claim to be masters of the dark arts in meadows at like midnight, and these things still exist. People having bonfires and celebrating pagan rituals and whatnot. So it's I think for someone who's experiencing England for the first time and maybe only sees an image of London as the UK of today, it's nice to get off the beaten track after a few months of being there and see some of the sort of less visible cultures and traditions that abound in places outside the capital.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree. I think that in a nutshell, and to wrap it up, I think if you are thinking on going to the UK, there are certain things that you can expect. It's like all of this magic that Kate actually spoke of, but also on the flip side, all the innovation, all the technology, all the cutting edge of London, and also this kind of open-mindedness, let's say, that you're going to find in London, but at the same time, all the history that goes across the entire of the UK, like with the different things that you're going to come across going from Scotland up north up to Wales. So I think all of that, the combination of that, I think, and the fact that you have a really a very powerful job market, I think that really puts the UK in a very sweet position. Let's put it like that, for you to consider a move to the UK straight away. So that's it, guys. So hopefully this was an interesting session. Okay, so today we covered the 5 things that you should actually consider while thinking on moving to the UK. If you have any further questions with regards to this or doubts, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help, and I'm guessing that Kate as well. Okay, so that's it. Enjoy your day. Take care. Peace.